I just got home from school and had the best time removing all of my makeup before remembering I have a video to film. So whenever people found out that I was reading the rest of the Throne of Glass series, people highly requested any sort of discussion video about that. So today I'm going to do a discussion over the Heir of Fire, not the Heir, just Heir of Fire. I'm telling you right now, if you haven't read this book, this is not a review, this is a discussion. I would not even scroll down to anything because you'll probably be spoiled. Click out of the video, read this series, it is awesome, and then come back and then we can share opinions. Or maybe you want to purposefully spoil yourself, which is a sad life to live, but do what you want. First of all, I haven't made any sort of video about the rest of the series, so I think I should kind of talk about how I felt about the first ones a little bit. I haven't given any of these books in the series 5 stars. I gave Throne of Glass 4 stars, I gave Crown of Midnight 4 stars, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. I'm just gonna go into the tiny, minuscule problems I had with this one, along with some of the praise I have for it. One of my main problems with this series, and mostly in this book, is that I have a little bit of conceptual issues with it. For most books, it's explained to you, this is what's gonna happen, this is why it can't happen any other way, this is what the character's gonna do about it, but I feel like in this series there's a ton of loopholes because there's people discovering they have magic, there's different things happening, characters are shifting into other forms. It's not very solid, and plus you don't get a lot of development behind the king and his powers, so I was definitely really questioning the plot in this book. Like, I texted several people, I was like, I'm very confused. If this king is such a tyrant and they need to stop him, why don't they just kill him? Why are they going the long route? I didn't know if I just didn't remember something about it or if seriously they were just making it much harder on themselves, but I was just questioning this, like, why not just go the easy route and kill the king in his sleep and have Dorian take over, restore power to the kingdoms, everything will be alright. But then people were telling me that the king, because of his weird marks and the weird keys, you couldn't kill him that easily, and which I guess makes sense, but I would have really appreciated an explanation of that from Sarah J. Maas or some sort of claim where these types of conclusions could be totally shut down. It's very rare that as a reader I put myself into the story and I'm like, well, if I was doing this then I would just do this, and I hate when I have to do that in my head, but that kind of happened in this book. And I guess that kind of goes to show how Selena and I, not really even Selena, it was more of just everyone collectively, I would have done things differently. But then again, it's probably better that they're doing it this way and they're getting to know their powers and they're being secretive so that they're not killing everyone in their wake. So I can see how it all works out, but again, it's just that little bit of why not this that irked me. Huge problem I had with this book, the witches. What the actual even heck was the point of the chapters with the witches? I read the first couple ones and was so confused and bored. I texted Civi, who is one of my really good YouTube friends, I'll link her channel down below because she also did a review recently. I texted her and said, "What is there a point to these witches? Do I have to read this?" And she said no, so I didn't. And I just skimmed the rest of them, just making sure I didn't see like Kale or any names that I recognized. And I didn't miss anything because they had nothing to do with this plot. And my other friend and I were discussing it. They might come in later, but I didn't read the sections. I don't know. Most likely if they have their own chapter, but that was such boring material. Going off on that tangent of being bored, I found myself only liking Selena's chapters. She's really the only character that I was invested into. Anyone other than Selena, I was like, I don't care. And it was definitely necessary information once Adian started coming in and they had to do all those plans behind the king's back, and definitely toward the end with the whole confrontation with the king and Dorian and Kale. That was really intense. This really became, I'm gonna compare this to City of Heavenly Fire. I only cared about the main character, and yet you get all these other stories intertwined, and it made it kind of choppy and boring, and that's how I feel this is turning out, is I only really care about this one character, yet we're getting everyone's story. I feel like this book is a little bit of a filler book, like nothing really necessary to the series happens. It's more of like a finding out what's happening, connecting the dots. You can tell it's a middle book in a series, and I feel like for its length, it was so unnecessary. This book really has nothing to do with the weird marks, and it doesn't really progress anything until the end. And I know it's because Selena is figuring out her powers, and so is Dorian, and Kale and Adian are figuring out how to work together and stuff like that, but it just seemed very lagging, which isn't really preventable, but for being a huge book, it just seemed very stagnant. In the end, I just feel like it wasn't worth the length. It wasn't slow to read per se. Regardless, I just was reading this like, where's the fight scene? Okay, let's talk about Selena and Rowan. The main reason I loved this book is because Selena and Rowan friggin' Whitethorn up there with Warner. I kid you not. Oh my god. Okay. Whew. Part of me can't, like, I don't know if I ship it, because I love the way it's done. It's not like a romantic relationship. Selena even says, when I was attracted to him, it's because I haven't been touched in so long. And so it was like, she could focus, and the entire time it wasn't, oh my gosh, he brushed up against me. And it wasn't angsty, but it was still kind of like flirty. Well, that's obviously after they sort out their problems and they're not yelling at each other every single day anymore. But even that was like, oh, he just made her so much better, and she was so strong. I loved how Rowan was embedded into this story. Love Rowan so much. Rowan is one of those characters that I love because, one, he pushes the character, and two, he points out the flaws in a character. So for the entire series, Selena's like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that, no one can defeat me. The reason I really didn't like Throne of Glass a whole lot is because the entire book, Selena's like, oh yeah, I'm so great, I can do this, I can do that, but you don't really get proof of it, and she just seems kind of cocky in that book, at least to me. But in this book, she, one, kind of proves that wrong because she shows how powerful and awesome she is, and two, Rowan points out to her that she is flawed. As she starts to get a certain way, she gets upset or she gets angry, and he's like, well, what are you gonna do about it? And then he pushes her, and it's so good. And again, I loved seeing Selena weak. Like, that's a mean thing to say, but it's so great to see a character not be perfect all the time. She can still mess up, she can still fail, she can still be weak, and yet she can be rebuilt. Rowan helping her become this person that's strong and can outlast things that tear her down. Yes. If this book was entirely Selena and Rowan, it would probably only be like 200 pages, but I would have loved it so much more. It would be a 10 out of 5 stars if this was just Selena and Rowan. But just one flaw I find in Selena, for being this ruthless assassin and not caring what anyone thinks about her and killing people or not killing people or whatever she ended up doing, she's a little bit rule-abiding. With any king or person in power, they'll be like, you can't do this, and instead of being like, well, I'll just kill you and do it instead, she's like, oh, and then she just gets mad at it instead, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. And again, it kind of goes with that whole conceptual confusion thing, because I'd rather her just like behead someone and do it anyway, rather than to be like sulking about it for a week and then following their orders anyway. Or at least have some sort of explanation why she couldn't just take a shortcut. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being like, why not go the easy route? There's still 3 more books, why not just chop his head off? I completely skipped over Dorian and Sorsha's relationship, which was a huge pet peeve of mine. I'm totally okay that Dorian kind of moved on and was like, I can't be with her, my dad will kill us, Kale's in love with her, etc., etc., but I was so disturbed that so easily he would just fall in love with this nurse for no reason, because he even said several times in, like, narrative in his head, like, oh, this could never happen. Actually, at the end, right when she's about to be killed, I was like, yes, like, part of me disgustingly was excited and, like, wanted it to happen because I didn't want him to be with someone else. I didn't really like Sorsha. I don't like how weak and meek and yeah, she was. I feel like Dorian wasn't a good match for her. I'm so glad they didn't get intimate, like, woo. I couldn't stand the relationship. Every time it cut to them, I was like, stop, where's Rowan? I love how Selena is a fae. I love the whole deal where she can shapeshift. I love her powers. The fire thing is so cool. I love that she has a blood bond with Rowan now. I think that was a really good addition. I thought it was really cute. I'm really sad that Rowan's immortal because that means they probably can't go canon. Or they will, and we'll be heartbroken. Yeah, and speaking of people going canon, I kind of had started predicting where I think the series will go, and I was like halfway through the book, and I wrote this down, then I erased it, wrote something over the top of it, but my prediction was she would go off and marry Dorian, because Dorian has ice power, she has fire power, I mean, fire and ice. And then Kale would either die or go to Aniel or whatever. Oh, I think Kale is just too weak for her now. I used to ship her and Kale so much, and I still guess I kind of do. But now, Kale definitely seems irrelevant compared to Rowan because it's just a whole different, literally an entirely different breed. But now with Rowan there, I have no clue what's gonna happen. I'm really upset because he can't go to Ardalan or to the other side of the ocean at all because the magic is gone. So will we see him in the next books where the magic be broken where he can come? I'm just waiting for a reuniting scene because Kale and Dorian and Selena were never all three there. They were always separated over to a Wendelin, I think it was called. And I can't wait until everyone's back together again. Yeah, so that was kind of my thoughts, my predictions. I'm hesitant to continue this series. I don't want to be bored. I don't know where it's leading. If they're all gonna get bigger than this, then God save the Queen, help us all. So that's all my thoughts on Heir of Fire. I would love to hear your thoughts, opinions, disagreements, agreements in the comments below. This is all discussion. I've already warned people not to come here if they haven't read it, so feel free to spoil all you want. This video has gone on for a very long time, so I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you all next time. Thank you for watching.